Go ahead.
A question about if you had any thoughts on, in terms of emotions, on how to deal with specifically, if you have any specific thoughts on how to deal with emotions of shame and self criticism, anger at oneself, because I feel like it's, in my experience, it's like it's a real draw, not to. It's very it's those kind of emotions are really magnetic, more so than a lot of other emotions, because it's like I don't even deserve not to be feeling intense shame, not to be self-critical, you know what I mean, is part of that uh system. So it's like when I might feel the sky or something, I'm like, oh, I don't deserve to feel the sky. That's not cool. I gotta.
Well, in the way you're describing, because I don't have a fit for all answer about how to deal with shame or anger or any of these things or self criticism, but just responding to you just right now and the way you formulated the question, what I would encourage you to do, Sean, when you're harassed by self criticism and negative self judgment, first of all, really establish that it's a feeling that that first of all you first of all establish that you would like to be free of that feeling. So in order to really establish that, you have to, in a way, you have to put yourself again in the way of the understanding that no feeling no feeling defines me or limits me. Not to say that a feeling can't be a big old cloud obstructing seemingly my freedom and my openness, but in order for you to really feel and want to be free of that feeling, it means that you're reorientating back towards a deeper truth. You're not out of the woods yet, but it's like you were turned towards the altar on which there was the separate self, and you were sitting at the altar of separation, and you say, okay, I'm turning towards altar that the altar of truth. But you're not out of the woods. You're still feeling the thoughts of shame, but you've just reorientated. And then, of course, you could do a lot of different things. But in your case, because it sounded like there are lots of thoughts, and you can very easily establish that the thoughts are revolving around Sean, and you already know that that Sean around whom these thoughts revolve is non-existent if you were to go look for that Sean. But you're not able to somehow stop the momentum of the thought of the thinking. So that it's like a momentum. It's relentless. It's like a hamster, on its little wheel. So I would just say, Sean, in those moments, ignore the content of the thoughts. There's nothing new there for you. It's just habitual and old, and I know many of us here have our version of it. It's not nice. We learned it somewhere along the road, but it's mechanical and it's very repetitive. And if you were to write all those thoughts down, you'd fall asleep after a while. They're very repetitive. So to bring it back down into the body, so the thinking, feel that the thinking is a quality of thinkingness, and then move away from the content into the body, into the feeling of thinkingness. It's a kind of agitation. And then, because you're turned back towards this altar, which is the altar of welcoming, of allowing, of not wanting to change things, but rather of wanting to, through the welcoming of what is here, reestablish the sky, simply because what is welcomed is by nature unfolding in openness. So so thinking this, you feel your body, you feel your head, you feel your forehead, you feel the tension in your body, the tension that accompanies this kind of thinking. And maybe you feel your heart, you feel behind the shame, behind the anger, the pain, the the little boy. I don't know, when did it start? It started young. Why? We don't need to hear why now because it's not the place. But if you stay with this feeling, and then you go to the place where hurt usually resides, in the throat or in the heart or in the belly, and then you don't do anything. You place it on the altar. You have, by turning towards the altar of truth, you have suspended any agenda. That's, you see, that when you turn away from the altar of separation towards the altar of truth, along the way you drop the agenda. You say, I'm here. I'm just welcoming my experience. Um, and I'm not suggesting that it's a quick unwinding. This when I describe this process, it's as if, oh, okay, all I have to do is turn towards the altar, and you're going to discover, each one of us, we discover how this takes place. But I guess a big key would be not to move out of the hamster cage with the thoughts, because the thoughts are really mechanical and they are very seductive.
Can I say one thought that I think keeps me hooked, that I don't know if other people can relate to, which is that, like, it feels irresponsible to do that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the self-criticism is trying to make me be responsible. And if I were to go to the altar of truth, as you
That's
said,
right. Well,
be
so I almost said, when you said, can I share a thought? I almost said no. Of course, I don't want to be the mean teacher, but I wanted to say, no, don't share the thought. Don't. Be very strong with those thoughts.
okay.
Don't give them any credibility. They are very seductive. They're really, really seductive, those thoughts. They really get under your skin. And
Mm.
then you want to go say to your friend, do you ever feel blah, 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 and da, da, da. And then there you are on your hamster wheel, feeding that habit. And so you have to be quite kind of uh, strong. And it's not always possible. When we're in the thick of it, in a real triggered situation, don't worry. Just, you're going to go through the shame and the self-criticism. When you're out of the woods, look back and conduct a post-mortem, look at the situation and just look at it with compassion. Um, ask yourself, would I ever think those thoughts of my best friend or my son, if you have a son, or my daughter? Just really feel what is happening here. Feel it, like, and then you'll be in touch more with the pain and the sadness, which is much easier to surrender. Because when we feel the pain or the sadness, somehow we're connected to compassion, or to uh, somehow that brings us closer to maybe the embrace, the love, maybe. And that's not easy sometimes to do either. So those are all just suggestions, Sean.
No, thank you. Those are good suggestions.
Good luck with it.
So I was on Eric Barre's retreat last week or 2 weeks ago, and that was my first time experiencing his teaching and his approach to yoga, to asana yoga. And I'm just wondering, having been to your sessions and now having experienced his, what's the difference in the approach to movement? Because with Eric, I asked him a question about waking up in the morning and feeling like my body has its own, just energy and its own movements to do things that feel good. And his response was, it's the purpose of asana is to get in postures that are not necessarily to feel good, but to cause a response to you that helps you work through patterns, memories of holding the body in a certain way of density. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to what your approach is here. And like, I know ultimately they're so similar. It's like a hair of difference perhaps, but.
Well, but the difference is that I include free movement and Eric doesn't, I would say, because the rest is similar. The intention is the same. And I would say that the intention is multi-layered. You could say that the global intention with the yoga is to encourage us to perceive our body, and not just the body, the world in a way, because we're working with bodily sensations and energy, but also with sense perceptions. So to eventually perceive the body world in line with our understanding, with our understanding being that our essential nature, our essential reality is free of borders, ever present, um, unchanging, free, freedom itself, peace itself, all the things that we know experientially, but and maybe that we've explored with our minds. Here we somehow put our bodies in the way of that understanding. And so the asanas and what Eric does and what I do, we do it differently. But to begin with, in the beginning of the yoga, there is no free movement. We establish the presence of awareness. The first thing we do, one way or the other, is establish the sky, the background of experience, the ocean, before attempting any exploration of the body, of the waves or the clouds. We really, and I do my best to turn towards that. And then we turn our attention towards the body, and to begin with. And I think Eric is right. If we were to move into free expression immediately, inevitably there's a tendency to, just to go towards comfort and indulgence. It's pleasure. It's just very natural that. But here in the first part of my yoga, and in the totality of Eric's yoga, you could say it's not about pleasure and indulgence, and it's really about uncovering the places where the separate self is hiding as the body, as the tactility. So that's why there might be postures that you hold for a bit longer than comfort, because then the resistance rises up. And usually in everyday life, as soon as there's a bit of resistance, if I'm moving and I'm holding and up, I move away because there was resistance. So why? But here we stay and we let the resistance blossom, you could say. And it's a kind of you could say it's a purifying. We're not engaging with the resistance in an analytical way, but we're just letting it burn away. And I know that you've tasted that and you've understood that. And then little by little, you could say that the yoga then moves on to another phase where we're no longer. At some point, there's a kind of experience of the body as transparent, more expanded, more. Not. It's not more. It's more that it's the body is liberated from the more and more becomes liberated from the imposition of separation, which is that resistance, that contraction, and the body begins to be felt more alive, more transparent, more borderless. Maybe all of this is not linear, by the way. Once we've established the background of awareness, that's very important. Otherwise, it would make no sense. Then I feel it's important to explore this experience called movement, because life is movement. And also, life is expression. And each one of us, we are life. We are life shaping itself, and we move from very personal, from very 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 much a sense of Ellen, Swarush, Claire, Hilka, to possibly through this exploring of movement, through to an experience of moving free of a mover, or an expression that to begin with is an emotion that's very connected to me, my life, my situation at the moment, and we give it a movement, we give it an expression, and as we allow that, because we've grounded our understanding in the background of our true identity, that feeling or emotion will naturally unfold and purify or burn away whatever is, you could say, personal or egoic, or maybe will burn away whatever still is expressing separation, but will continue to be a shape, so that's why I like to move to explore free movement, so that we, each one of us, can begin to navigate this spectrum of sometimes being that person that even feels a separate one, and yet beginning to navigate this amazing dance. You could say it's the Shiva Shakti dance, where Shakti, sometimes they merge, and then sometimes they separate. Creation moves away from her creator, seems to, in order to express herself, and she can move very far. She can even turn her back on Shiva. She I can't put this into words very well, but because your intention and your interest and your love is with the truth, there's no danger. It's always coming back. It's always. Also, free movement allows us to reconnect with the body, or to reconnect with life, I want to say, because life, as I said earlier, is moving, and the body and life, tactility, energy, vibration, it's not matter, it's divine, it's God. It's made out of this unnameable I. It's made out of I. So there's an intelligence there that we can begin to. We are that intelligence in a way, but we have forgotten the taste of that particular intelligence, I want to say. That may come through gesturing, moving, sounding. And again, it's difficult to put that into words.
Thank you for clarifying that. That makes sense. And I think I was thinking of free movement in terms of just moving it along with pleasure. But if that's just a sensation, I'm marking that as pleasure, and then there's resistance, and then I don't let it blossom, like you said, then the movement is not in service of the background. It seems like it's being
Yes, but
guided by something else.
when we go into free movement, I always like to encourage people not to think about any of it, whether you're resisting or not resisting, or you've done your bit with the asanas, and with the free movement, it's gonna clarify itself on its own. You might actually move away from resistance towards pleasure, but it will catch up with you, this understanding. And also, I think it's more an opportunity to work with expression and feelings, emotions, and um, discover what an emotion does when it's given a shape, when it's allowed to take a form. Discover what happens then, but not to worry too much about any of it, really. Once you're in the once you're in exploring free movement, it's really more about freedom, freedom itself, and who cares if you're indulging in pleasure? That's part of creation, it's if you, but then you'll have a moment where something new will be unfolding.